Hey everybody, it's Rycard here again, back with another black and white Pokemon analysis. Today, we're going to be discussing the Gear Pokemon known as Gigigear. So let's get started by taking a look at its typing, abilities, and stats. So first off, this Pokemon is a Mono Steel type, meaning that it has weaknesses to fighting, ground, and fire, but resists a heck of a lot of other different types. It has the same typing as the Pokemon Mawile, which you're probably more familiar with. But because of the resistances that come with this Mono Steel typing, you can bet that this Pokemon can be a very safe switch in onto pretty much anything that your opponent is throwing at you, unless obviously it's one of the types that is super effective against Gigigear. As for its abilities, the first two that it gets in game are kind of useless in singles battles, but can prove to be somewhat useful in doubles battles. Plus and minus basically work together. If you have plus and another member of your team has minus, your special attack and their special attack is increased by 50%. And the same if it was the other way around with you having minus and them having plus. So really, one can't work without the other. And that's why for the majority of sets you're going to be using, you're probably going to be using the ability Clear Body to prevent any stat drops from happening on you, which is always a plus, meaning that if a Pokemon switches in that has Intimidate, Clear Body will prevent the Intimidate from lowering your attack. So that's always a cool, unique ability, and most likely its best ability. As for the stats, it has pretty low HP with only 60, but its physical defense and special defense are actually pretty good. 115 physical defense is really high, so if you want to put a lot of EVs invested in that stat, you can make this Pokemon fairly good as a physical wall. And its special defense isn't bad either with 85, so you can definitely make use of both of these defensive stats. And because of this Pokemon's typing, it allows it to effectively take hits from whatever is being thrown at you because of all your resistances. As for the attacking stats, you have 100 base power physical attack, which is actually very usable and good. So this Pokemon can definitely attack from the physical side. On the other hand, its special attack is also usable, and the thing is that this Pokemon has a very shallow move pool, meaning that it pretty much only learns steel and electric type attacks. So even having 100 base physical attack or 70 base special attack still won't make up for the fact that you don't get a lot of coverage with this Pokemon. But that's just something that you'll have to try and hurdle over as you use it. As for its speed, though, it's actually at a very good 90 for a defensive Pokemon, so this Pokemon can easily become fast by putting EVs into that stat and allow it to use its 100 base attack stat or even 70 base special attack stat, whichever you want. So it's pretty much a well-rounded Pokemon in the sense that its stats allow it to either be attacking or defending against a lot of different things. But with that, let's take a look at the first set for this video. So in this first set, we're going to give Gigigear an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack but decrease its special attack. And as for the ability, we're going to be making use of Clear Body to prevent any stat drops your opponent might want to put on you, or stat increases as well. As for the EVs, 4 are going to go into HP, 252 into attack to give you your max attack possible, and 252 into speed to give you the highest speed you can get with an Adamant Nature. As for the item, it could either be an Iron Plate or a Life Orb. The reason why you would want to use Iron Plate is to obviously not take recoil whenever you attack, and also allow your stab moves to deal even more damage, because Iron Plate increases the power of Steel-type moves by 20%. You would want to use Life Orb, though, if you just want to do as much damage as possible, but there's always the side effect of the recoil damage you take from it. As for the moves, the first two in the set listed are actually moves that are very unique to Gigigear, and it's the only Pokemon that can learn them. The first of which is known as Gear Change, which is an awesome move that increases your physical attack by 1 stage and your your speed by 2 stages. So think of it as like a Dragon Dance, but with an extra speed increase. This will allow this Pokemon to be extremely fast and also deal out lots of physical attacking damage. As for the next unique move to this Pokemon, it is known as Gear Saucer, which is a 50 base power Steel-type move that hits twice. So you can kind of think of it as like the Steel version of Bone Meringue. It only has 85 base accuracy though, so it can miss and might do so often. But the fact that it can break subs and then hurt your opponent if the sub is either going to be taken out by one attack from the Gear Saucer or is just at very low health, is always an added bonus. And it'll be doing plenty of damage because after a gear change you have over 400 physical attack, so it'll be a great stab move to use. Up next is Volt Change, which is the new electric type U-turn, which is a special attack, but since it's used to mainly switch out, we're not going to really worry about the fact that we're not trying to do damage with it. This is great to scout and also switch out easily if your opponent tries to switch into a counter to you. For example, if you use Gear Change once, you already have higher speed than the majority of things you're going to encounter or that are going to want to switch into this Pokemon. So using Volt Change is a great way to switch out easily because you'll be faster than your opponent, and then you can switch and do something to counter whatever your opponent has. Lastly, we're going to be making use of Return just because it's another powerful physical move, and this Pokemon doesn't really get any other types of attacks that it can make use of for type coverage. So Return will be there to deal out damage to things that Gear Saucer cannot hit for neutral damage or super effective damage, such as flying types and electric types, and water types actually. But that's pretty much the best physical set I could come up with for this Pokemon. So let's move on to the special one. So for the special variant, we're going to give Gigigear a timid nature to increase its speed but lower its physical attack, and then we're going to be making use of the ability Clear Body again. As for the EVs, the only difference in this set is the fact that we're putting 252 EVs into special attack instead of physical attack like in the previous one. And for the item, we're going to be making use of leftovers to allow us to increase our HP a little bit at the end of every turn. The reason we're not using a life orb or something like that is because of how you're going to be trying to increase your special attack with the set, which is primarily through the use of the move Charge Beam, which is a decent powered electric type special move that has a 70% chance to increase your special attack by one stage. And since you're going to be trying to increase your special attack, if you're doing that while you're also losing health from a life orb or something like that, it really didn't make sense to me to do that because it's not always going to boost your special attack, and since it is not that great of a powered electric type move, it would seem kind of a waste to use it with a life orb, at least in my opinion. The next move we're going to be using is Flash Cannon because that'll be your main special stab Steel type move, and then that'll be used in combination with either Hidden Power Fire or Hidden Power Ice. Both give you pretty good type coverages. Hidden Power Fire will allow you to hurt the other Steel types you may encounter with this Pokemon for super effective damage, so that's always a plus, whereas Hidden Power Ice I think just gives you better type coverage in general. The last move is going to be making use of Metal Sound, because that will lower your opponent's special attack by 2 stages every time you use it. And since this Pokemon's special attack isn't incredibly amazing, Metal Sound will definitely be beneficial in allowing you to do more damage to your opponent after the defense drops. And a lot of times if a opponent sees that it is lowered in its special defense, it might want to switch out to get rid of those special defense drops. So that's where you could easily use a Charge Beam in hopes of trying to increase your special attack one stage when they're trying to switch out or something like that. Pretty much it's just kind of like an endless cycle between Charge Beam and Metal Sound until you can obviously use Flash Cannon and Hidden Power Fire / Ice more effectively. As for this last set, it's going to be one of my many pressure band sets that I've put on a lot of these new Pokemon. And what's great about Gigigear is because of its Steel typing, it can resist a ton of different oncoming attacks from your opponent, which will essentially allow it to stall out with Pressure Band and your other moves more effectively than other Pokemon that have used the set. But first, we're going to give it a careful nature to increase its special defense but decrease its special attack. And then again, we're going to be using the ability Clear Body, which actually serves as a really great ability in this situation to prevent you from being lowered in any of your defenses and therefore being easier to be taken out by your opponent while they're trapped. As for the EVs, we're going to put 252 into HP to max out your HP, which still isn't that high because of your low base stat, but it will hopefully get the job done. And then the remainder of the EVs will be 128 into physical defense and 128 into special defense to give you some really good rounded defenses with your excellent steel typing that'll be resisting a bunch of attacks. And obviously the item, since this is a pressure band set, will be pressure band. And if I need to explain it again, basically it takes the damage caused by a move like Bind or Whirlpool or Fire Spin at the end of the turn and increases it to be 1/8 of your opponent's health as opposed to 1/16. And since the trapping moves like this got a boost in this generation, meaning that they always last for at least 4 turns, if your opponent doesn't hold leftovers, it'll always take out half of their health whenever you use a move like that and stay in for 4 turns. So that's really good. And the move for Gigigear that we're going to be using is Bind. Obviously with that, we're going to also try and use Toxic to poison your opponent and allow them to be whittled down even faster by the Bind and Toxic. And in order to be even more annoying, we're going to be making use of Protect to stall out more turns, allowing them to take increased damage and also you to be protected for 1 whole turn and not have to worry about attacks. As for your last move, this can either be a choice between Rest or Volt Change. The reason why you would use Rest is if you want this Pokemon to be purely able to stall out your opponent and take it out, and you obviously keep your full health while this is going on. On the other hand, if you want this Pokemon to be more useful in battle, meaning that it doesn't just trap opponents and stall them out, you would use Volt Change as a way to come in, Toxic something, and then switch out by dealing a little bit of damage when you do so. Obviously, you could easily just do that yourself without having to use Volt Change, but it looks cooler, and you also can get switch advantage in the process because you'll see what they switch to, hopefully, or something like that, and you can in turn switch after that and see or bring in an appropriate counter. So even though this set is fairly similar to the other pressure band sets, you can see that this Pokemon's typing and good defenses but unfortunate HP, low HP, will allow this to do it in a unique way that the other Pokemon that I've put pressure band sets on can't. So that's pretty much it though for Gigigear. So I hope you guys like this analysis, and I will see you in my next video. So take care and goodbye.